I was taught there's no such thing as a friggin' ghost, until I went looking, damn, I found them really close. EVPs and my camera saying please get out.
18 creepy stories from people who work in hospitals. Psych staffer has a dreadful premonition in a dream that comes true. From a former Reddit user. I am not a doctor, but I am a nurse. I work in the geriatric patients, and there was an incident about 3 years ago. Before I explain, let me say that I did not believe in ghosts. Anyways, this one time I was working the night shift and I was super sleepy. So I decided to skip lunch because I wasn't hungry and go to my car and sleep for 30 minutes. I got inside my car, covered myself with my sweater, set the timer on my phone, and immediately knocked out. I'm dreaming, but in my dream, I'm still awake, just sitting there. Someone taps on my car window, and I see that it's one of my patients. We'll call her D. Surprised, I ask D what the hell she's doing outside, and she tells me she is looking for her daughter. I told her to go back inside and that we will call her daughter in the morning. My patient becomes angry and starts banging on my car window. I kind of freaked out and tried to reach for the door handle to get out and calm her down, but I quickly realized I can't move. Let me add that I frequently experience sleep paralysis, so even though I'm asleep, I realize what is happening. I fight it and try squirming my body and attempt to wake myself up. I finally manage to wake up, and my heart is racing and my forehead is a bit sweaty. I sit there for about a minute, realizing it was all a dream, and roll the window down to cool myself off. My break is over and I clock back in. I see my supervisor and 2 other nurses and huddle in front of a room. I am still by the station clocking when they see me and call me over. I walked over thinking maybe something was wrong with the ventilation or the patient fell, but my supervisor tells me D died while I was on my lunch break. Since most of our patients are DNRs, and if you guys don't know what DNR is, it's do not resuscitate order. I was not paged. It took a couple of seconds for the message to register, and I freaked out immediately. I got goosebumps, but didn't mention anything to my supervisor about the dream. I didn't believe in ghosts or anything like that, and I mostly likely had that dream because she was the last patient I interacted with before my break. So she was still on my mind, and I was mentally going over my patient's chart in my head. Paramedics respond to a disembodied elderly woman who just witnessed a gruesome suicide, or S word, depending on how TikTok wants to judge this, from a former Reddit user. We got a call to go out to a scene for an elderly woman with chest pains. Arriving at the house, the front door is open. We knocked, heard the old lady crying out in the back. I'm in the back room in a very monotone and calm voice. My partner and I go to the back of the house looking for this woman, and that's when we smelt it. Nothing prepares you for that smell of a rotten corpse. I have smelled it a dozen times, and it never gets any less disturbing. We radio for the police and ALS backup. As we move through the house, we open the doors to the master bedroom, and there is our patient. She is approximately 80, and she is staring at the master bathroom with these cold, dead eyes. She never once looked at us as we approached her and began talking to her. I got to the bedside and got in front of her gaze, and she just looked right through me. I turned around to see what she could possibly be looking at, and there was the source of my smell. A man about the same age as my patient is on the floor with a very little life left of his head still attached to his body. A shotgun laid on the floor next to him, and the most of his head was sworn about the walls and bathroom counter. We loaded the woman up in the ambulance, and our police back up pulled up. I didn't think that the woman blinked once the entire time she was in our care. Totally fucked me up. I should have said this in the beginning, guys, and I'm sorry, but trigger warning on this video. Psych tech meets scary 7-year-old from a former Reddit user. As a tech in the psych years ago, there was a 7-year-old kid sent to the floor because a man didn't know what to do with him. Sadly, common things to happen. Even if the kid didn't have a psych issue anyways, the mom was shaking and crying, and they had to take the kid into another room. She was genuinely afraid of her own son. She had suspected something was wrong when she kept finding mutilated animals in the backyard, but never heard or saw coyotes or anything around. The neighbors' smaller pets started disappearing. The boy had an obsession with knives, hiding them around the house, denying anything when the mom confronted him. Then, when the two started getting into arguments, he would get really violent and hit her, pushed her down and kicked her, threatened to kill her on multiple occasions. She woke up in the middle of the night with him standing beside her bed, staring her in the face. She put extra locks on her bedroom door to feel safe while they slept. The last straw was when she lifted up her mattress and found 50 plus knives of all shapes and sizes under there. So she brought him to us. I remember talking to him, treating him like he was a normal, or was just another kid that came through. He seemed remarkably normal until you spoke directly to him. He had this way of looking right through you, or maybe like he didn't see you at all. While you were speaking, he would respond like a robot, like he was just saying words because that's what we wanted to hear, and B would always put on this creepy, dead-looking smile, like all mouth and no eyes, and fulfillment in the smile, especially when he would get away with something like taking another kid's markers or they couldn't figure it out. Still gives me chills laying here thinking about him. I had to get up and close my bedroom door. I believe I met a 7-year-old psychopath. Doctor has frightening experience verifying woman is dead. From Reddit user /u/edhb9189. Verifying death is always sad, but my friend tells the funniest story about how creepy his first verification of death was. This is not meant to disrespect anyone. Black humor is a huge part of Doctor's coping strategy. He was on the night shift a few weeks into his first job as a qualified doctor and got a call from a ward to say a lady has passed away. An unexpected death, hence he hadn't been called about her before, and could he come and verify and do the paperwork? It is a busy shift with a lot of sick people to see first, so he takes several hours to get there. He goes up and they tell him she's in room 8, a different to the room 8 is slightly ajar, or the door to room 8 is slightly ajar, and the room is dark. Now she was in a side room, but most patients there were to share a bay of 6 beds, so you get into the habit of not turning lights on. In his nervous haste to make sure it didn't look like he was nervous, he slipped into the room armed only with a little hand torch. The window was slightly open, and he swears the blinds rattled against the sill. As he creeped towards the bed, a tiny circle of light forms his torch, picking out a rumpled white hospital bed or blanket, only a very slim raised showing where she laid, as she was a tiny old lady, just skin and bones. Finally the light plays over her face, and he was a bit back a scream, nearly dropping the torch. For whatever reason, her pose in death is one of the horrified and horrifying snarl, lips drawn back to bare, likely false teeth, and the whites of her eyes showing in a fixed blind stare, and both hands up close to her face, curled into claws, slightly over long nails shining grimly in the mirage torchlight. Now, to verify a death, the doctor had to listen for heart and breathing sounds for 2 minutes while feeling for a pulse, checking the pupils' reactions, and checking for no response to pain. He flicked the torch dustfully across her glaring eyes, forced himself to shuffle close enough to touch. First, he checks for response to pain, then he settles shaking fingers on her throat, so close to those furious grinning teeth, to feel for a pulse. To get his stethoscope under the collar of her gown, under the blankets, he has to lean in very close, almost nose to nose with her now, unable to draw his gaze away from her. And he has to stand like that for 2 minutes, the seconds crawling away as she stares into that screaming face. He said there's no way he could have heard a heartbeat or a breath sound, even if she had been alive. All he could hear was his own racing heart in his ears and on the loop in his head. Please don't let her move. Please don't move. Oh dear God, don't move. Hey guys, I just wanted to do a trigger warning with the image and trigger warning with some of the information in this video. That way, so TikTok doesn't decide to take the video down. The video is Dead Man's Body Slips Out of His Skin from Reddit user /u/doc-n-a-box. Motorcycle driver, accident, 3rd-degree burns, arrived DOA, had to transfer him from ambulance gurney to ER bed. As we moved him with the transfer sheet, the liquefied/cooked substance fat caused the charred skin on his back to separate and his body slipped onto the floor, despite several of us trying to catch him. Dead lady reaches up, grabs ER nurse's wrist. From Reddit user /u/sad trombone _ ER nurse here was doing CPR on a lady whose heart had stopped. They intentionally rolled her into a room unconscious and not breathing. This lady is pretty much dead. However, in the middle of doing chest compressions, her hands reached up, grabbed my wrist, and then fell back to hanging off the table. We never got her back. Med student delivers baby from a dead woman. From Reddit user /u/blue-gray-purple. When I was on an ER rotation during med school, we got a call about a 23-year-old woman who was shot in the head and who was already completely gone, but was reportedly 5 months pregnant, so they were doing CPR until they got her to the hospital to see if the baby was viable. They got her to the ER and did the ultrasound, and turned about the baby was full term, and they did a C-section in like under a minute and got the baby out. I didn't think it was incredibly uncommon, but it was pretty surreal to see a baby delivered from a dead person with their brain exposed, and she was pretty close to the same age I was at the time. Woman has hallucinations of bugs crawling all over her, from a former Reddit user. Nothing I can say can possibly describe the year I worked in a psychiatric intensive care. There was a woman that came in and sat down across the table from me for her admission interview. She had bandages all over her arms and scotch tape over her mouth and ears. She looked very uncomfortable and wouldn't really stay still. When the nurse would ask her a question, She would peel the corner of the tape back to answer and then stick the tape back on really fast. We eventually found out that she saw and felt bugs crawling all over her, and they were trying to get inside her body. The tape was to keep the bugs out, and the bandages were because some bugs got in and she had to dig them out. She couldn't sit still because she felt the bugs all over her, even while we sat and talked. The worst part was she had some idea that it was her mind playing tricks on her. Can you imagine going through your life feeling like someone is constantly dumping buckets of cockroaches on your head, feeling like they are all over you and getting inside of you, to the point that you are digging chunks out of your flesh in a panic, all while knowing technically that none of it is real? Psych patient literally fights invisible demons from a former Reddit user. A girl spent my entire 8-hour shift fist fighting the same ghost. She would throw a few punches and obviously landed knockout blows, so she had bent over and twisted her hand around like she was wrapping some long hair around her wrist. She dragged her opponent down the hallway, giving them a few good kicks, then set up for a curb stomp. Started off kind of funny, then gets a little disturbing when you think about the graphic things going on in her mind, then just sad after you watch this replay for hours on end. I understand what this girl must have been going through. I do suffer from bipolar myself, so I understand what it's like to literally fight your demons. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
I was taught there's no such thing as a friggin' ghost, until I went looking, damn, I found them really close. EVPs and my camera saying please get out.